The war at Kurukshetra ended millennia ago, and the names of its kings have largely faded into myth. But ancient texts describe one soldier who never left the battlefield, a man still wandering the earth with a single unhealing wound. This is Ashwatthama. While his peers attained heaven or faced their end, he was left behind. He was born as a cosmic anomaly, meant to bridge the gap between the divine and the mortal. Yet he exists now as a phantom of a forgotten age. At birth, he was equipped with 3 distinct layers of power. He carried the essence of Lord Shiva. He possessed a naturally occurring gemstone, a mani, embedded in his skull. And he was the son of Dronacharya, the man responsible for training the most powerful army on Earth. That forehead jewel removed his biological needs: hunger, thirst, or exhaustion. It functioned as a kinetic shield, repelling conventional weapons and known diseases. These advantages were designed to make him the ultimate survivor. But as the war approached, these physical protections began to highlight the one area where Ashwatthama remained vulnerable: his internal stability. Long before he was a general, Ashwatthama's life was defined by scarcity. His father, Drona, was a brilliant scholar but lived in such deep poverty that he could barely provide the most basic necessities for his family. In one instance, a group of wealthy children decided to exploit his naivety. They handed Ashwatthama a cup of rice flour mixed with water and told him it was the milk he had never tasted. Ashwatthama drank the mixture and celebrated his luxury in front of his father. Drona watched in silence as his son cheered for a cup of dirty water. That afternoon, Drona abandoned his life of quiet scholarship to pursue the wealth and influence required to ensure his son was never mocked again. Ashwatthama walked away from that exchange with a realization that stayed with him. Status was the only thing standing between a real life and a cruel joke. Drona eventually became the royal tutor to the princes of Hastinapur, and Ashwatthama moved from the slums to the heart of the empire's military academy. It was here that Drona granted him the Narayanastra. As shown here, the weapon operated on a feedback loop, multiplying with every attempt the enemy made to resist it. You either laid down your arms or you were vaporized. Drona also shared the secret of the Brahmastra, a tool of total planetary destruction. However, he withheld the second half of the instruction. Ashwatthama learned how to fire the weapon, but Drona refused to teach him the mantra to recall it, fearing his son's temperament would one day override his restraint. Despite having access to these world-ending tools, Ashwatthama was constantly reminded that he was not his father's best student. That title belonged to Arjuna, a classmate whose natural focus and skill consistently left Ashwatthama in second place. His physical invincibility did little to help him cope with this professional shadow. He was a man equipped with the armor of a god, but the social standing of a subordinate. During the Kurukshetra War, Drona became a nightmare for the Pandava army. He was systematically dismantling their forces, and they realized that no warrior on their side could match him in a fair fight. To stop him, the Pandavas decided to abandon the traditional rules of engagement. They knew they couldn't kill Drona's body, so they decided to attack his mind. They killed a war elephant that shared his son's name, Ashwatthama, and then announced the death to Drona. When Drona asked for confirmation, the army used a blast of conch shells to hide the fact that they were referring to an animal, not his son. The strategy worked. The most formidable general on the field was neutralized not by a sword, but by the belief that he had lost the one person he had spent his entire life protecting. Believing his son was gone, Drona simply stopped. He dropped his weapons, sat on the floor of his chariot, and entered a deep meditative trance, detaching himself from the physical world. At that moment, an enemy commander approached. He had spent his entire life training for this specific opportunity to strike Drona down. He drew his sword and struck the unarmed, meditating Drona. It was an execution on a field meant for honorable combat. Ashwatthama was far enough away to be safe, but close enough to see the blade fall. The sight of his father being murdered while defenseless destroyed the last of Ashwatthama's restraint. The decades of feeling secondary and the memory of his father's poverty fused into a single, overwhelming drive for retaliation. The protections granted at his birth, the hungerless body and the impenetrable skin, offered no defense against the sudden absence of his father. Ashwatthama decided that if the rules of war had been discarded to kill his father, he would discard them to end the world. He was no longer a soldier or a son. He was a man with a world-ending arsenal and nothing left to lose. We will see the consequences of that shift in Part 2.